Throughout this past semester, we have gone over a variety of topics ranging from policing to media influence when it comes to race and ethnicity in the criminal justice system.
One topic, however, we didn't touch heavy-handed, so we decided to take on the task ourselves. And that topic is about how the language barrier, not only in the criminal justice system, but in the surrounding community, is delivered and received.
After reaching out to numerous resources to find testimonies and research that were heartfelt to the topic, we were able to discover shocking information. Take a look.
To start off, you can see this graphic by the Migration Policy Institute. It shows percentages of those who speak English well enough to understand what is going on in a courtroom setting versus those who would not be able to orally explain themselves, whether that be a witness, defendant, or the prosecutor.
Approximately 25 million people in the country have limited accuracy in English, meaning they can't protect their rights in courts without an interpreter. Although the Department of Justice requires states to provide certified and capable interpreters in the courtroom, 8 states do not require certification, and of the ones that do, the policy is still manipulated to save money in order to get out of the time-consuming process to hire acquainted individuals.
This systematically errored combination of a faulty system is a serious issue that affects lives. Here's a first-hand look at what it can look like for a family that was deprived of justice due to the lack of communication.
Okay, go.
Alright, whenever I was told about this topic, I knew that I could ask my mom to help me clarify her story about her brother who has always had trouble with drugs and has been in and out of the court system pretty much his whole life. And he has definitely faced a lot of conflict with language barrier. So the main language barrier here would be how translators that are given as public attorneys that really wouldn't invest a lot of time into their clients. They practice formal Spanish that we're taught in the education system, Spanish specifically from Spain. So with my uncle and my entire family being from parts of Mexico that are very culturalized and speak different types of Spanish because of where they grew up and their entire upbringing, it was really hard for them to find a common line to properly communicate exactly what my uncle wanted to say and have the translator be able to relay that exact information.
While interviewing Jackie, she made a very relevant point. Oftentimes in the American school system, we are taught Spanish that it's grammatically correct and really proper, but in most Latin American and Hispanic regions and communities, they speak variations of this dialect. Now, while we recognize that we can't completely bridge the gap of the language barrier, if the states were to follow the federal laws and cope with the things that are in place, the gap would be very well minimized.
There was a specific time where my uncle was affected by this. He was accused for theft, and when he was at his court hearing, he grew really frustrated because all the odds were basically stacked up against him due to all the priors he had and just the troubles he's been through in the past. So it was really hard for my mom to watch him. She got emotional telling me this. It was hard for her to see him in that situation where he was pretty helpless only because of the language barrier. He did not commit that crime. My mom was pretty much his alibi, and it's really unfortunate that because of this hole in the story that his attorney couldn't fill in. The verdict of my uncle's trial ended up being that he was found guilty and he was charged with theft after all. This happened 5 years ago, and even till this day it's a really sensitive subject for my family to talk about. It's been hard for him from that point on to, you know, be normal again, feel like humanized in like any aspect of like trying to get a job, just because he was given a lengthy sentence. And you know, that's a really big effect on someone and what lies ahead for their future. And I can only imagine how much harder it must be, you know, growing up in a border town like that, with immigration being a really big topic, especially in politics today.
Oftentimes, people who don't speak English proficiently are stereotyped, looked down upon, and are commonly seen as lazy or not willing to learn the more common language of America. But in most communities near the border, a vast majority of the population can cope with languages spoken amongst the community and its individuals.
There was a testimony recorded by Color Lines journalist Michelle Chang that a Korean woman seeking a protective order against her white native-born husband who had firearm expertise testified that he had threatened to kill her. The judge denied the restraining order because he could not understand her testimony.
This incident is a sad recording on how privilege and language barriers can affect someone's entire well-being. This case shows the white man once again coming out on top when clearly this woman was in desperate need of protection. This Korean woman had confidence in the United States justice system. Although she had a weakness of not being able to speak proper English, she should have still had the right treatment as someone who can speak proper English. This type of neglect shouldn't be allowed in the criminal justice system at all.
When defining the criminal justice system, we associate the explanation being criminal justice is the delivery of justice to those who have committed crimes, rehabilitation of offenders, and moral support for victims.
In conclusion to our documentary and our findings, we have found it shockingly and surprisingly sad, and we feel that the language barrier should have a bigger impact than it does. We've seen via the Migration Policy Institute the list of those who are affected by this and those who don't speak English proficiently and the representation that they have. We also feel like the courts should be more aware of the issue and follow the federal laws more accordingly, and that the federal government should step in and have a bigger part in this picture.